So there was a day that it was in our Grand Rising Elizabeth, one of those, let's see. Oh, okay, I remember. It was on a Tuesday. Tuesday is Mama Razia, Deetra, and Jacqueline. In particular, Jacqueline speaks about finances, and we give a shout out to her because she was going to be doing a presentation, and her body said, "No, you're not. You're going to stay here and go through your healing process totally." So keep her lifted up in your prayers, in the healing lights of God. But one day she had to go out of town, and Ken stepped in as our guest. I don't think she knew you either. You were recommended or something, or did she had already done some business with you? Yeah. So what Ken brings to the table is around wealth management. So we get wealthy, or we just get where we are right now. Some of you may be wealthy already, but wherever you are right now, this is perfect for you to start. If you have not begun to manage your finances on a whole different level, this is your day today, and you won't be able to say, "I didn't know." And just like I said, Reverend Amani was talking about when you die, you can't take your stuff with you. And if you didn't do what you should do, like what these kids are going to talk about, your family will be struggling. It doesn't mean that they're struggling financially. Maybe you're already rich. But how about who gets what? And who's going to do what? And how are you going to generate from generation to generation and know that you can leave this earth in peace, knowing that you did what you were supposed to do? I honor my mom. My mom, and we were low income. Mama was fixed income, but she made sure we had everything, and including instructions. Mama would live like this. She took care of all of the bills. We didn't have to scream around or run. Well, we didn't have to go around and raise money for her. We didn't have to pass the bucket. We didn't have to stress because she didn't have what Kim's going to talk about, but she did have an insurance policy that covered her burial, and then we got $3,000 extra money. It came to me, it was in my name, but I shared with the other 4. So, but we want to grow up. We want to be big in what we're doing. We want to give space for more. Because as more comes in, we must manage it properly, right? And then what you have right now, we get to manage it properly. So I have just taken Ken in as a brother. He came on the show and he was just like a brother. He was just talking. We were talking about helping you had to help your brother at that time, doing home care and taking care of others. And that's what he was in the midst of. He jumped right in from the very beginning. You know how the show goes. He was right in there. So I've just fallen in love with Ken as a friend and as a confidant around money, and know that if I follow his instructions, I will be okay. So I want he's going to tell more about his background and such, and why he's in this position to talk. And I just want y'all to give a lot of love, a big round of applause for Ken Harrison.
Greetings. I came in from Washington, D.C. to be a part of this event, and so glad I did. I tell you, but when I arrived, Reverend Nicole had the stage. And I learned some new things, as we all do. Would you all agree it's a great day when you learn something new? Absolutely. And then after Reverend Nicole, after Dr. Nicole, and the four ladies that were on the stage, I mean, between the beautiful voice that was shared, the three different forms of dance that was celebrated as body, talk about how to protect and enhance the health of this body, and then Reverend Monty followed that up. But can we give her a hand as well as the others, please? Let's give it to them. So what I get to do is follow behind them. And put that back up for me. So what I get to do is follow these wonderful, wonderful women of God and bring it all together and relate the intangibles that you heard them speak about and demonstrate to the tangible assets of life. Because Reverend Amani she so well put, this body is a system, mind, body, spirit. And you've heard about protecting the body. You've heard about how to enhance the spirit, getting rid of toxic thoughts. Everything she talked on, at some point, I stood before an audience and shared those same things. Why? Number one, because they're universal. Number two, we need to know those things about protecting this system that God gave us. And you know what? I shouldn't have to tell you, but as a very friendly reminder, you only get one. Okay, we get this one lifetime. So let's relate that to tangible assets. That is the home you've been blessed with. And if you're not in a home with a deed or title with your name on it, you're somewhere. You're in a condominium, a townhome, an apartment, even if it's rented. Should you want to protect it? The automobile you drive, the investments you may have, the stocks, the bonds, the mutual funds, whatever form of income you may have, can we agree? Those are blessings, number one. Number two, those are the assets that Reverend Monty again said, we can't take it with us. So let me ask you a thought question before I get into the slides. If you can't take it with you, what have you specifically laid out as a plan for it to be properly and sincerely utilized by the next generation? Could you take it to the next slide? Oh, next slide. What have you planned? What have you put in place? Because there's a saying, if you fail to plan, you have planned to fail. And would you intentionally come to me and say, no, Brother Ken, I didn't plan failure. I'm not expecting failure. I'm not going to accept failure. But if you fail to put a game plan together in anything in your personal life, spiritual life, physical life, if you fail to have a plan for protecting those things God bless you with, sooner or later, something's going to fail. So we want to talk about how do you protect those assets. Number one, for the rest of your life. Secondly, beyond your physical life. You can't quite read it. There's a scripture out of Proverbs 13:22. Solomon said, a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. Now, in his wisdom, he was blessed with, Solomon said, let's look beyond the here and now. Let's look beyond our children. Solomon said, I dare you. And right now, Ken Harrison says, I dare you for the next half hour to look to your children's generation. And you might say, oh, Brother Ken, come on. We're struggling to get by now. Double-digit inflation, gas prices coming down, but still high state level debt. We're not making enough to keep up with inflation and et cetera, et cetera. How are you gonna have me talk about or think about or institute a game plan, believe in something for the children, and let alone the grandchildren, when I'm struggling right now? Yeah, there's a system for that. but we weren't taught it. Engineer by background, a bachelor's and a master's degree. Vanderbilt University undergrad, George Washington University grad, just down the street from the White House in Washington, D.C., where I reside now. Not in the White House, in D.C. And yet, in all those years of getting education, I never got the information I'm sharing with you right now. And I can again relate to Reverend Omani when she said, Danielle was trying to get us to, you know, I like what you called it, TikTok and Instagram and all those things. That wasn't part of our generation that they're going at it. So the information I'm sharing with you, I don't put this on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, because they don't want me teaching what I'm about to share, okay? And when I say they, I used to be one of they. Top secret U.S. clearance and a clear path direct to the up inside the Vice President of the United States. The bachelor's degree in engineering, I used that engineering career to get a path into NASA and DOD, Department of Defense. And between the two, I was on teams that created, designed, developed, tested, and launched spy satellites. Okay, don't tell anyone I tell you that. But it was for our protection, it was for our good, for the good of humanity, and for the good of protecting us from the evil that do want to destroy us, because we believe in freedom, other countries don't, and freedom has a price, it's not free. But in all of that, I said all that to say this, I never learned what I'm about to share. Asset protection, if you take me to the next slide, please. Asset protection, more specifically, asset protection through a private trust. Now, by show of hands, how many of you would say you're fairly somewhat knowledgeable about a trust? Anyone? More, and how many of you would say you're very knowledgeable about a trust? So aware, conscious, one or two, very knowledgeable. And then out of those very knowledgeable, one more question. How many of you who are very knowledgeable actually have a trust, and you can also say you are living through that trust, and you have therefore manifested complete total asset protection? Anyone in that category? No. So one thing is you don't know it, which is honest. Thank you. Number two, you know it. Three, you know it and you taking advantage of it. Now, guess what? If you're in any of those three, that's okay. 98% of all Americans don't have a trust and are not currently living through a trust. And it's a lot of reasons. We don't know how, or we think it's too expensive, or we think it's for the rich and the wealthy, the so-called rich and famous. And that's what they want us to think. They don't want Queen Aduni, Ken Harrison, Sister Pam, they don't want us to think that we deserve the same lifestyle that they have. We might not have their wealth and riches. We might not have their name, their fame in name. But would you agree that your house, regardless of the financial value on paper, your automobile, your investments, everything God is blessed with, can we agree right now, is just as valuable to you as theirs is to them, irregardless of the price tag one would put on it? Okay, with that understanding, let's now focus on how do we protect it. Well, that's what we haven't been taught. That's what I never learned until 2014 when I was asked to represent about 55 of my clients who were all investors. Some of you are familiar with that RV concept and the currency, the foreign currency behind that. Well, it was 55 of them. I went out for a year and a half in California to represent that group of investors. And while there, government officials, representatives of their government agencies who were following and watching everything we did. Why were they there? We were talking about manifesting very significant wealth. Okay, 55 people all receiving anywhere from 1 million and hundreds of millions of dollars. So government, RS, CIA, FBI, Homeland Security, State Department, FBI, and a total of 8 agencies were watching what we were doing. Guess what? Those same 8 agencies watch what each one of you do every day through your bank account. Did you know that? Now, they're not concerned about the average paycheck being deposited, size-wise. They're not concerned about you sending a few $100s to your child in college. But did you know that when any significant amount of money moves, and nowadays that significance is relative. If it's over $10,000 or more, $9,999 or more, RS is going to take a look at it. Your bank is going to transmit a little secret notice to IRS that 10,000 bucks just came into your account. Why RS? Because now they want to know. They're going to watch. Are you going to pay taxes on it? And if you don't, you better be ready to prove it was tax exempt, right? You hear me? Why? Because it was in your name. It went into a personal public bank account. I'm about to talk about how to make that a private transaction between you and that source of income. Don't matter where it came from. If it's less than 10,000, from 5,000 to 10,000, it's what we call a soft plan. But any of these 8 agencies can see this through the central banking system. That's why so many of us love cryptocurrency, which is decentralized, meaning they can't see it, they can't track it. And so when we talk about how do you protect that bank account, how do you protect these other assets I'm referencing, is taking it out of your name and putting it into privacy. There are 2 ways to do it. You can learn how to live through a corporate entity, or you can learn how to live through a trust. Now, the fact of it is, every one of you represent a family, but not all of us represent an LLC or corporation. By show of hands, who in the room has a corporation, corporate structure, and or LLC? Wow, far more than what I normally get, far more. And you can choose to live through that. But for all of us who don't necessarily fall in that category, we can institute a private family trust. So let's talk about a few things about a trust. Take it forward. A few thought questions, and I'm going to go through these real quick. Just going to make you think. I'm going to answer every one of these things for a while. What is a trust? Who is a trust for? Why would you even want a trust? Who runs a trust if you decide to create it? Is a trust tax exempt? Okay. Can a trust own a family business or any other type of business, like those LLCs and corporations? Some of you, most of you have in this room. Who benefits from a trust? Next slide, please. Can my trust, regardless of where the assets begin, but those assets go to be millions of that. Through a trust you could start. And then can your trust own foreign assets in addition to U.S. holdings? Is your family worthy of a trust? That's where a lot of us don't even feel we're not even worthy of it. What's the cost of a trust if you decide to get one? Does the trust die when you die? And can a trust own cryptocurrencies and other newer forms of assets that we're being introduced to? You'll get answers to all of them. And then what would these entities on the screen have in common? What in the world would the sports leagues, your NBA, your NFL, your MLB, that's Major League Baseball, your NHL, National Hockey League, NCAA, which governs all college and university sports. What would they have in common with all your medical centers, local and nationwide? And what would they have in common with wealthy families? So just throw out an answer. What would they all have in common? Throw out an answer. Finances. Finances. Lots of money. Would you agree? They control millions and billions. Can we agree on that? Absolutely. What's one other thing you think they all have in common? They control a lot. What's another one? Legally. Absolutely. A lot of us don't pay taxes, well, I won't go there today. But what they all have in common, in addition to those great thoughts and facts, they are all a trust. Every alphabet company, that's the government. Those 8 I mentioned, along with every other one, all of those are trusts. Every government agency is working under its own separate trust. Question, let me prove it. Have you ever heard of anyone successfully suing Social Security Administration because their check got messed up? No. Have you ever seen a successful lawsuit brought by a player against the NBA or the NFL or Major League Baseball? When there's a dispute, what word do you hear? You don't hear there was an in-court settlement. They sometimes do an out-of-court settlement, or what's the other word you hear? Arbitration. So there's some keys to when there's a trust in existence, but they won't ever say it's a trust. NBA, NFL, Major MLB. Have you ever seen Inc. or LLC after those words? No. First clue. Second clue. Everything goes to arbitration. Third clue. If you read the news and watch, sometimes you'll see a news article addressing an issue, and they'll mention the trustees had a meeting. How can you have trustees if there's no trust? But then it say there's a such and such trust. These individuals are representatives of this trust. This is how much they control. No. Okay, and then you can go from the Kennedys to the Mellons to the Rockefellers to the Carnegies to the DuPonts, and you go on and on. The Kraft family that owns the Patriots, the Hunt family that owns which franchise, Kansas City Chiefs. You can go on and on. All of that wealth is controlled with trust. Now, next please. Let's look at why. Let's look at why. By definition, this is why a trust is so powerful. A trust is legally defined as a relationship. So, can you sue a relationship? No. If Reverend Omani was my sister, could you sue the sister-brother relationship? No. Someone could institute a suit against her or her business or both. They can introduce a lawsuit or legal action against me or my business or both. They can't sue a relationship. And then you could go on and on about the power of that relationship. But let's look at the relationship. It's a 3-party relationship. The first party is a person known as a settlor. In some trust documents, you will see it also known as a grantor. Those words are interchangeable. I'm going to use settlor from here on out, but just know they mean the same thing. That's the creator of the trust. The person recognizes creating that trust. Then you have a creator of a trust having the authority to appoint one or more trustees to work with them to control the trust, and there'll be asset in it. Those become known as the trustees. And then the third party to relationship is one or more beneficiaries. These are individuals that benefit from the existence, the sheer existence of that trust in any sort of way. Next slide. Let's stay there a moment. Now, there are various types of trusts, but every trust in existence has that relationship at its core, at its foundation. That relationship makes it a trust. If it does not have that 3-party relationship, it's not a trust. Okay? Even if the creators of that entity thought they were creating a trust, but they don't have beneficiaries, they don't have trustees, and they don't have someone who officially went down as a settlor, it's not a trust. So that's what a trust is legally. Now, there are various types of trusts: corporate trust, corporate trust, land trust, charitable trust, spendthrift trust. There are revocable trusts, there are irrevocable. There are statutory, there's non-statutory. Okay? All of these terms have specific meanings. Don't have time in this session to go on every one of them, but a land trust obviously is created just to very specifically protect one or more pieces of land assets, real estate. Okay? A charitable trust obviously is structured and put in place to handle and manage charitable contributions, coming in, going out. A private family trust is what I'm addressing. Specifically, an irrevocable express trust, because even within the category of private family trusts, there are a whole lot of them. So I'm speaking specifically addressing irrevocable express trust under U.S. common law. By the way, I'm not an attorney. Yeah, I'm doing that master's. I took law courses, but just for knowledge, not to practice law, to utilize law. But this is U.S. common law. So a non-statutory trust, you hear that term? That means it's under U.S. common law, which stands above state law, i.e. statutory law, okay? A statutory trust is one you would get if you did choose to employ an attorney to create that trust. That would be a statutory trust, written under the laws of any one of our 50 states. Why do I practice U.S. common law as opposed to statutory law? Number one, I'm not an attorney. Number two, I shouldn't say not an attorney, didn't choose to be an attorney. Number two, the U.S. common law trust does cover all 50 states. So I don't have to teach my clients state law. And trust me, you wouldn't want to learn that anyway, even if I chose to teach it to you. So all of these are great trusts, but the irrevocable express trust that I'm talking about is a 99-year generational trust. Now we're going to move into generational wealth. It would take a generational trust, in this case 99-year duration, to grow and protect and preserve generational wealth. Would you agree with that? Absolutely. Now there's a thing called the living trust. Those of you raise your hand saying you do have a trust, more than likely, not necessarily, but more than likely you have a living trust. When you go to an attorney, 99% of the time, they're going to start that discussion with a living trust. It's so that you have to come back later to turn it into a generational trust. I say skip the living trust, let's go straight to an irrevocable generational trust. Irrevocable means once it's created, no one, hear me well, no one has the authority to terminate it. You can't even terminate it. It's going to last the 99-year duration that's in the document. You might say, well, Brother Ken, what if I decide to stop living through that trust? What do you mean I can't terminate it? Well, you can stop living through it, you just can't terminate it. So if you got assets, home, automobiles, etc., in that irrevocable 99-year trust, if you decide to no longer live through it, trust me, you'll never decide that, but if you should, you just what we call walk away from it or abandon it. You sell all the assets, you discontinue putting money into the trust bank account, and you simply not use it. But it's going to last that 99-year period, which is for your benefit. Because when we say express and irrevocable express, guess what? This particular trust is the only one that allows you to completely 100% express your wishes and desires as to how you want your assets and any other family assets included, invested, managed, controlled for the rest of your physical life and even beyond your physical life. Now you might say, okay, wait a minute. So you're saying after I die, I can still have control over the assets that I place in that trust? Yes, you can. How's that? Well, there's documents that get attached to a trust. I help you create the initial trust structure. So you have a trust in place, irrevocable express trust in place, next 99 years. Now, we're going to show you how to write a thing called trust resolution. If you have a home that goes into the trust immediately, we're going to write a resolution saying, first of all, who do you want living in that home when you pass away? And I think we can agree, we're going to all pass away one day, right? Not just some of us, all of us. So who do you want authorized to live in the home? And maybe you don't want the home to remain in the trust. Maybe when you pass away, you want to write a resolution saying, when I pass, I want the home to be sold. I want the profits or proceeds from the sale to go to XYZ. XYZ can be whatever you want. If you have grandchildren, great-grandchildren, you can declare you want the profits from that sale to go, you want half to go and establish a scholarship fund for those grandchildren, great-grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren. You can say you want another half to establish a pool for capital investments. So if any of your children, grandchildren once you are adult, mind you, wants to start a business, you've left money in place. So that's why when Queen mentioned, I'm gonna talk about how to still have some control over things that you leave behind, even beyond your physical life. You see how now? But without a trust, by show of hands, is there any other way that you know of in America, under American law, is there any other way you could institute those sorts of things and put those things in place? There's no other way. So you say, well, Brother Ken, that's so powerful in itself. Why don't I know this? Because you're not supposed to know this. And I'm not supposed to teach it. That's why I don't blast it in social media. Everything I do is in private. Everything you do through a trust is in total privacy. When you look at who's required, I went over that, those three parts. And out of those trustees, the head trustee is known as the trust protector. Now, how do you select the head trustee known as trust protector? Well, if I'm working with a husband and wife, I put it to them this way. I look at their disease and I say to them, whoever is going to be the most active between the two in managing the day-to-day affairs of the trust, beginning with working with me to put the trust in place, I want that person to be the trust protector, head trustee. All other trustees are accountable to and report to the trust protector. That's like akin to, and in the corporate world, you have a chairman and CEO, president at the top, or president and CEO at the top, and everyone else falls in rank under that person. And then you have a board of directors in the corporate world. Well, in the trust world, the equivalent is this: CEO, president, CEO in the corporate world, trust protector in the trust world. Board of directors in the corporate world, board of trustees in the trust world. Now you might say, whoa, why is that so similar? Is that a coincidence? No. Very little in America is by coincidence. It's by design. Because when the elite wealthy came over from Europe, what's the first thing they did? They took land, stole land from the indigenous people who were already here. Some of them were our ancestors. These cheekbones, this is Cherokee and Western Africa, or West Africa, excuse me. So they had to have a structure to put that land in, to put those assets in. As they killed indigenous people, the so-called Indians, because they thought they were Indians, right? We know the story. Well, they're running India. The indigenous people already owned it now under our Native American culture. We don't look at ownership, okay? Spiritually, we recognize that everything on this land was just a gift from the Creator. And we were blessed to have it, to use it, and then pass it on. What is that? Stewardship. See, so I'm now taking us out of the concept of ownership and putting you into the concept of stewardship. You heard Reverend Amani and others mention today, as a man thinketh, so is he. As a woman thinketh, so is she. So I want you to start thinking stewardship as opposed to ownership. I want us to start thinking generational as opposed to temporary, here and now. Okay, now moving forward. Select your trustees. Well, when I talk about that subject, I hit on it real quick because a lot of people think, well, Ken, the concept is good. Yes, I have some assets that I should put under trust protection. It would be valuable, but I don't have anyone that I can think of that could act as really good trustees. Think about it. A lot of us will immediately, our mindset, our thought at that time will immediately go there. So we got to accept that we are students, we are sometimes slaves to our mindset. Change your mind, you'll change everything else in life. You'll change your bank account, you'll change your address, you'll change everything in life when you first change your mindset. So we're talking about 2 or 3 good trustees would have the mindset to want to work with you to protect that which God has blessed you with. Okay, now your assets. So they're acting as trustees for your trust. It's not their trust, it's yours. But, A, in Act wisely, I came up with an acronym, ACT. In Act wisely and select the trustees, you don't have to go any deeper than that. A, they should be available when you need them and be willing to be accountable to you because you're the head trustee. And like I said, if you're a husband or wife, you're gonna pick the one who's gonna be most active in running the trust, working with me to be the first trust protector. By the way, trust protector is a year-to-year appointment. So any given year, they can switch it up. If you're a single person, automatically, I'm gonna make you the first trustee. Now, if you've got an adult daughter or a niece, nephew, cousin, sister, brother, best friend, and by the way, some people think in a private family trust, they must absolutely be a family member by blood. No, you can appoint a non-family member as long as they're willing to be accountable and available. Then the C in Act, they're willing to be, well, not willing to be, but you feel they're capable of helping you run that trust the way you want to run it, and I'm going to show you and educate you on how to run it. And then T, obviously, next slide, please. Obviously, they must be trustworthy. You must be able to trust these individuals with assisting you in running that trust. Now, if you decide, A, yes, I have assets deserving of protection, because if they're not in a trust structure, they're not protected. So if you decide, yes, I have assets worth protection, yes, I want to not only protect those assets so I can continue enjoying them the rest of my life, but once I'm gone, yes, I want those assets to be in a protected structure that can pass to the next generation, and then the next and the next and the next. And then along with that comes what? A thing known as a legacy. So if you leave a scholarship fund or a foundation to create scholarships for others inside, outside the family, within your trust agreement, that's a legacy of what? Higher education. And so you can create a legacy through your trust. When you talk about birthing your vision, and once that vision is birthed and been manifested, do you take it with you when you die? No. Who's going to carry on that vision? Who's going to carry on the business that was created from your initial vision? The jobs that were created, the income that was created, the other investments that was earned from your birthing of your vision. See, all of that becomes what? Your legacy. But if none of those things are recorded, assets and protection of assets, passing on to the next generation, along with generational wealth and legacy. If those things are not important, I'll tell you right now, for free, for no cost, I'll help you generate a perfectly good will. Because at that point, you can give it away. But here's what's not enough. Here's what I want you to start thinking. But just stay forward. Here's what's not enough. Doing nothing should no longer be an option. No trust, no will. That, do you realize, I know you do when you think about it, the headaches that creates for your surviving family members? I can't tell you how many conversations I had one just last night, Queen. Just last night, a young lady came up to me, said, Brother King, can I call you and talk about a probate situation? Relatives have died in the family. Assets are tied up in their names. I have that conversation at least twice a week. Now, they're regretting that there was no will, there is no trust. Now, I said earlier, 98% of Americans don't have a trust. So less than 2% of the time, I'm expecting to hear there's a trust. That's why I'm excited to know some of you do have a trust and at least knowledgeable. But what really gets me is how little we put value in a will. Because with nothing in place, when you or someone else passes, that person died in what they call intestate. Now, who takes over? Anybody, just call it out. Who's in control of those assets when they die intestate? The state. It's in the word, state. Intestate, state. State takes over. And again, you wouldn't say to me that you consciously wanted a state government to take control of your assets when you die. The assets you worked your butt off for. The assets you were blessed with are now in the control of a probate court headed up by a man in a black robe known as a probate judge. Every state has a probate court. Now, we don't always go by probate law. And technically, many of us, most of our families have broken the law. Every time there was a granddaddy, grandmama, big mama, auntie, uncle, so-and-so, do you know that every time they died without a will or trust, and we decided amongst ourselves, or the family decided amongst themselves, who's gonna get what? And that's the good side. Sometimes they can't agree. I'll start with that one, then I'll talk about when they don't agree real quick. But when they agree and they give everything out, they don't realize they're breaking a state law. But as long as they keep to themselves, they're okay. Okay. Now, what happens when they disagree? Have any of us seen the fights, family disputes, families torn apart over stuff? We've seen it because there were no instructions. There was nothing in writing, no will, no trust, nothing but chaos, fighting and bickering and arguing. I know families that have family members in the same family haven't spoken for 5, 10, 12 years over stuff. A trust, I'm saying to you, can eliminate all that plus do everything else I've talked about. But let's go through the benefits. Instead of this one, Sister Pam, when you report me, I'm going to have you report me for another one. Just one more. 7 reasons you need a private trust. I'm just going to summarize the incredible benefits of living through a trust with this slide. And I call it 7 reasons you need a private trust, even if you never thought about it, even if you didn't feel you needed one. Number 1, it's the privacy protection. When you go from living through your government name, your public name, to living through a trust, you went from the public to the private. Living under privacy and identity won't touch you. Why won't they touch you? You look broke. If your assets are in the name of the trust, you don't own them legally. You don't own them. So if you don't own them, if you're in a home that's in the trust, can an identity thief steal your identity and then do a quick claim deed and take your home? We don't have a clue of how often that happens. But yes, there's a form called a quick claim deed. If an identity thief knows what I'm telling you, once they steal your identity, they can go to the courthouse, file a quick claim deed, and for the next few years, you usually figure out if you get your tax record and suddenly something doesn't look right, or you go to maybe get a second mortgage or an equity line of credit against your house, and they go, wait a minute, you don't own that house, I can't give you a loan. And that's how people find out that someone has robbed them of the very roof over their head. But if it's in a trust, and I'm an identity thief, I can go to the court and look at who owns what, but I'm not going to see a property in your name, even though I just stole your identity. So what's going to happen? I'm not going to steal your identity. I'm going to go to that person who has assets in their name. And I'm the same with the bank account, same with anything else. If an identity thief is coming after assets to steal, they're going to overlook you if your assets in a trust because you look completely broke. That's what you want them to think. You don't own a thing. And that's the one's concept. That's where you want to be. Own nothing, control everything. Okay? Now, this body, mind, body, spirit, that system. You heard Reverend Amani saying there are things you can't control in the intangible spiritual world. I agree. I'm talking intangible assets. We can control who drives the car, who's entitled to, who lives in the house, when do you want to sell it, when you want to add additions to it. We can control those things. It's best to do it through a trust for all the reasons I'm sharing. And then you've got, when you're living through a trust, minimal taxation. See, once you place an asset into a trust, it's now owned by the trust. Every expense against the asset is now a legal tax deduction. Not a tax credit, but a tax deduction. But guess what? Trusts have their own set of trust laws. And those laws, trust laws, are dictated on a form, again, you and I are not supposed to know about it. Write it down if you take notes, 1041. Form 1041. Now, you know 1040. 1040 easy, 1040 short form, 1040 long form. Now I'm talking about 1040. 1040 says what? For businesses and individuals. 1041, when you pull it up at IRS.gov, it's gonna say for estates and trusts. It'll look like a foreign language, but you get an accountant or tax person working with you, and guess what? Now, when you're living through a trust, virtually every expense is a legitimate tax write-off. Travel, every utility. Imagine this, writing off your gas bill, electric bill, water bill, lawn care, home improvement, maintenance, put a new roof on, all those things tax write-offs. If it's related to your car, you put your car in the trust. Payment, car payments, insurance, taxes, the annual registration, every expense associated with that car, every drop of gas, every drop of oil, every oil change, every brake change, tax deductible. By show of hands, is there anyone in the room that's been living that sort of tax-free life where everything you do, you figure out how to make it tax deductible? And I wouldn't expect it because we're not supposed to know these things. See, if this was taught in elementary, junior high, middle, or high school, or college, I would expect you to know it. And I'd be shame on you, you didn't know that. But no, we're not supposed to know it, so don't feel bad. You know it now. Is where you said, can't say after the day, I didn't know this. Now, you have a choice. I always say, two greatest gifts God gave us. Number one, the gift of grace. Salvation through grace. Number two, he gave us choice. And he even gave us a choice not to choose grace, not to choose salvation. So that choice is yours. But if you again decide to ever choose to live through a trust, in addition to leaving paying zero taxes, you are going to put yourself in a position of maximum liability protection. Now, what does that mean? If a lawsuit, legal action, adjudication, judgment, any of those things come against you, and you, let's say worst case, you lose, guess what? They still can't take your asset. A legal action against you that you lose can only take from you that which is in your name, i.e. you own it. If it's not your name, they can't touch that car. I don't care what the price, I don't care what the brand name on the automobile is, they can't touch it. You're living in your home, irregardless of the value of the house, they can't touch it. Can't touch anything, even if you lose the legal action against you. That's why a Donald Trump or a Kennedy or a Rockefeller can get sued over and over, but they seem to get wealthier and wealthier. You ever heard that saying? It just seems in life, poor gets poorer, the rich get what? Richer. That's why they can't lose it. Then, continuing, put all this together, you got maximum asset protection. You put all of this together, you've got the complete elimination of that probate court I just mentioned. Because when you die and everything's in a trust, there's nothing to discuss, nothing to adjudicate, nothing for family members to argue on. Because there's a structure, number one, governed by your trust. And then within that structure, you've added those resolutions. So you pass away, there's a resolution. Who gets to enjoy the home or rental properties or whatever? There's instructions. The investments you left behind, whether it be cryptocurrency or physical US dollars, there's a resolution that says who gets to continue to utilize it or what is it going to be used for. So all of those things are handled, covered. And then the elimination of those family disputes we've already talked about, done. So if someone, now, if you might say, well, Brother Ken, if someone wants to argue, could they argue? Yeah, but it's viewed. It will have no legal strength whatsoever because the trust is going to dictate what's what. And who's in charge of the trust? Your surviving trustees. And during the rest of your life, if you decide to institute a trust, I'm teaching you how to teach the trustees, number one, what your wishes and desires are, backed up by documentation. We're not leaving it to verbal. We're putting it in trust resolution. And that's a contract. The trustees are under contract to abide by those resolutions. Meaning, if I say my house is going to go into a trust, 10% is gonna go to a church or a nonprofit, and the other 9% is gonna be split up this way. They must execute that to the letter, or they are breaking trust law. So they must step down. If they don't want to do what I said with those assets, because I originally created those assets, they must step down and allow a family member to step in who wants to honor my wishes or honor your wishes if it's your trust. But your legacy is going to live on. The bank account will continue to grow. Real estate will continue to grow in value. Automobiles, guess what? Comes a time when automobile decreases in value, doesn't it? What it tells us, the moment you drive off the lot. But if it's a certain automobile and you want to keep it in a trust, it hits 25 years, it's a classic. Help me out. It's a classic at 25 and an antique at what? It's at some other point it's an antique. Now, did it go down in value when it hit classic and antique, or did it go up in value? It went up. So don't think for a moment your assets, if they are held on in a trust long enough under asset protection, meaning can't lose to probate, family dispute can't take it out of the family, is controlled, monitored, managed properly by your surviving trustee. See where I'm going? Generational wealth. The car, stay in the trust long enough, antiques. The real estate. The real estate historically go up in value or down? Up. Even if the house is not properly cared for and it becomes dilapidated and gets torn down, what still went up in value? The raw land. We know this, right? The raw land went up. So every asset, here's what I want you to look at this. Every asset that you choose to place into a trust at the outset and then periodically, God blesses you with more, it's going into the trust to be under trust protection. Keep in mind, if you don't put it under the trust, even if you have it, and you own it, but you don't put it in the trust, it's not under trust protection. Real quick story, O.J. Simpson. When, you know, he was found not guilty of the murder charge. Not arguing good or bad, right or wrong, he was found not guilty. But he was found guilty of wrongful death, which was a civil lawsuit. Guess what? They couldn't touch that mansion. Couldn't touch his fancy automobile. But guess what he forgot? Can anyone out loud? What did he forget to put into the trust? Say it again, Sister Dr. Cole. His Heisman Trophy. And they took that sucker and sold it. And then the memorabilia, what's the word? The sports memorabilia that he went with the other guys with guns to take in that Las Vegas hotel, he didn't put those in. That's why he had to go try to take it back. That's what got him in prison. So see, folks, there's case studies all around us that backs up everything I'm saying. Let's take the artist formerly known as Prince real quick. Now, we know it's been some years. Do you know there was no will, there was no trust? His stuff is still in probate. Did you know that? More recently, we lost Sister Aretha Franklin, Queen of Soul. Everything's in probate still. Because they found the will. Number one, it was stuffed in a sofa cover. According to what I read, might not, everything we read, can't read. Say again? You heard that too. So it was doubted because of the condition it was found in. And then one child or granddaughter said, and that doesn't look like her signature. Oh, here's another thing about a will versus trust. A will can be contested. So a will is subject to probate. A trust is not subject to probate. Whether it's a living trust or irrevocable generational, not subject to probate. Whether it's statutory or non-statutory, not subject to probate. So again, the education is the knowledge. The knowledge is not the power. It's whether you choose to apply this knowledge. Question and then question. Yes, I agree. But they consider that when it's contested, then they consider you're not under trust protection or will protection. So you end up in court. and they're still battling it out. I just recently read, the attorneys have made more money so far than anybody else. Those attorneys are ripping that family off. The last thing you see on there is the trust structure, and nothing else is the foundation of creating and leaving a legacy along with generational wealth, as I mentioned earlier. Sister Pam, you can take me on. We're gonna wrap up the slides and then we're gonna do a little quick Q&A session. So ongoing, folks, because this is just an introduction. This is just to give you an appetite and to get you thinking, well, do I really need a trust? They're not cheap. And it takes your time. But if you have the assets and you want to protect those assets, understand right now, there is no protection. We can put you in that protective structure. So every Monday evening from 9 to 10 Eastern, it's been via conference call since 2014. We're about to transfer that over to a Zoom platform. But every Monday night, we have a 1-hour event. First half hour is what I call spotlight time. We address real life situations that clients can expect to be faced with, and here's how you handle it, living through your trust. So they're getting something fresh every week. You be getting something fresh, in addition to talk with me direct by phone, of course. And then the second half of that 1 hour is an introduction to the trust, because most Mondays, existing clients invite prospective clients, their friends, relatives, business associates, fellow investors in their investment clubs to come out and hear the introduction to the trust. So that's what you get every month. And let me add to that, it's not up there, but that information is current if you want to jot it down. I would be happy for you to come on next month and talk about the fact that I met you here, you met me here, and I'd love to give you 1 or 2 minutes to mention the great experience that you had by being here, so that it won't help for this one, won't help fill these seats for this one, but guess what? Help me propel this event for next year, because the seed will be planted. And I can't tell you the joy and pleasure I experienced from everything I saw and heard and was educated on. So yes, I will be promoting this from now on. Next slide, please. Hold the question. I'm just gonna finish up 1 more slide, and then I'm gonna park there. Okay, so there's my number. I want you to do, Sister Pam, I want to go back a few slides. I just want to, one more, right there. Now, assets that can be put into a trust includes everything up there and anything else. I want to summarize with this comment. Anything you have traditionally thought of owning in your name, I will educate you on the value and benefits of holding and owning it and controlling it through the trust instead of in your name. Then I give you the choice. Now I say, okay, now that you know the pros and the cons, you decide. Do you want that particular car in the trust or not? Do you want that particular investment in this trust or not? But I'm going to educate you to the best of my ability. And you get my services for 6 months with the choice to create a trust, 2-hour session to go through the entire trust document. Then after that session, I give you time to fill in the blanks. The blanks are things like who's going to be the trustees, out of your trustees, who's going to be authorized on the trust account. You might have 2, 3, 4, 5 trustees. I don't care, but you only need you being the head of the trust, and one other one to back you up on the trust account. Okay, and then all the other who's going to be trust protector, who's going to act as settlor. See, that information I'm gonna have you put in. At the moment that's in, you have completed your trust draft. I check it out, and we don't print it out until that trust draft is finalized by me. Once you print it, you get it signed off by your trustees, notarized. At that point, your trust is immediately in effect. He said, well, Brother Ken, I didn't have to take it somewhere and record it. Nope. U.S. statutory, the U.S. common law trust, don't have to record it. That's what we're preserving your privacy. Okay. one other thought with that. It'll come back to me. So, oh, here it is. The bank account. You might say, well, when do I get a trust account? Well, the moment that document is signed off and notarized, we're going to immediately, with no delay, set you up with an appointment at the bank of your choice to get your trust account open. And once that account is open, you continue to have my services, consultation, education, unlimited hours. You can pick up a phone call if you need more than 10 or 15 minutes. We're gonna schedule time to cover. If you just need 5 to 15 minutes right then and there, I'm free, you free. We're just gonna take whatever questions you have, education. It's all about education, education, education. More than anything, I'm an educator, okay? But, so all of that is included, and that's a 6-month agreement. And now she's gonna take us back to that very last slide. You can get my number off that slide and call me again. Don't try to go to a website. You won't find them. I don't want to have to argue with the government. They used to grant me that secret security clearance. Why I'm doing it, who I'm doing it for, what am I charging? I know how they work. I used to be one. I don't want them in my business no more than Reverend Marty wants them in her business. Okay. Now, if you're on social media, I'm not saying that's wrong for you. You're probably not doing anything like me where you don't need to be in don't want to be school time. Okay, that's just for me, not for you. So there's my number. Questions, comments, feedback. Yes.
I got 2 questions now.
Okay. They're gonna jump in.
Thank you, and very good information.
Right.
I have 2 questions. One is, okay, an administrator of a trust, can the administrator also be a trustee?
Say the first part again. I want them to hear.
The administrator of a trust, can the administrator also be a trustee?
Typically, an administrator is a trustee, okay? I'd have to see the document. The term administrator is more often associated with a will, okay? More often, you're gonna see that labeled in a will, not a trust.
Right, it was a will.
Thank you.
Okay, my second question, okay, I have a cousin who recently passed. And she thought she was smarter than the average, attorney. And she was involved in a whole lot of things to get off the grid. And she did exactly what you're saying. I know she had at least $1 million, at least one. But she had about 4 trusts that I know of. And probably some other ones that I don't know where she did all her stuff. I am her last remaining relative. And how do you find these things after somebody died? It's time to get off the grid.
So you know, in these 4 trusts exist.
At least.
You
Oh,
have-
and then there's 2. Okay, you're talking about the land. Because what she tried to do is transfer her trust to somebody. You know, instead of like in a land.
Land trust.
Yeah.
She tried to transfer real estate. Well, actually, what she was trying to do is transfer ownership of real estate. And when you do it through a trust, which is one of the smartest moves in the world, you eliminate all taxes and closing costs, legal fees, you eliminated all of that.
But
That's
what she tried to do. But, okay, and then I'm just trying to go by with her, not get involved with attorneys and the courts and all that. And then I found out that you can't transfer a trust.
Correct.
Okay, so that's where we are now. These people, they think that they have the house, they moved in, and then we're finding out legally you can't transfer the trust. They get to have to get together.
Well, we're gonna talk, but here's what you can do. as you heard me say, now, she's deceased now? Okay, so she can no longer do it. And were there any other trustees to you all's knowledge, too? You and the family's knowledge, any other trustees?
We don't know anything about it. You know, she was very, very secretive. She was a trumper. She was getting into the, QAnon.
Okay, got it. Now, the bad situation, okay? Now, that's why, thank you for that. That's why you heard me say, you want to appoint what, other trustees to work with you. And therefore, you're guaranteed to have surviving trustees. You heard me say that, right? See, she doesn't have any surviving trustees.
We got friends who are supposedly these trustees who are very comfortable people, so that's okay.
All right, so if she has trustees, then they have all the knowledge you don't have. They have a copy of the trust, and they know what her wishes and desires were. So you don't, but they do. Now, do they have a legal responsibility to share that with you? No, they don't.
Right, but I got the best.
Doesn't matter.
Oh, really?
No, does not matter. That's just the certification of her death. All that certificate is. Her trustees, within the trust document, do not have to disclose that there is even the existence of a trust. Remember I talked about privacy? The privacy is protected for good reasons, but everything good can be turned to what? Bad, right? See, God takes something bad and brings us good out of it. The rest of the world, we live in, does the exact opposite. So you could ask them, but they're not required under trust law. They're not required to share anything with them, sharing that. Okay? Good or bad, they're not required. Great, thank you. Questions, comments before we close out?
My question is, one of the sisters, she already left, but, for a church,
Yes.
should a church, I'll say the word should, be in a trust? Can they and should they?
Great question, great question. Yes, they can. And when we say should, that becomes relative and subjective. I'd have to look, here's what I always ask a client. What's your objectives? What do you want to achieve? Now, if they say certain things, I might say, well, just take your church. Here's what you can do with a church. You can LLC it. You can 501c3 it. You can put it in a trust. Now, I'm not going to automatically tell the queen to put it in a trust just so I make money. I want to hear, well, what's your thoughts? What's your objective? What's your end game? And depending on what their end game is, that's going to allow me to give them the best answer. If that answer is to place them in that church in the trust, for instance, you might say, well, why trust instead of 501c3 base? Yeah. Who knows where I'm going with that? 501c3 is a what? Government code, RS code. Who did you put yourself under? Who did you just put your church under control of? Nothing. So if that's a concern, we're not going 501c3, and we're definitely not going LLC. You can also incorporate a ministry. We're not going there. They don't want to be under government control. I'm going to do listen to me, a private organization trust. Equivalent to a private family trust, but it recognizes the fact that the controlling parties that you appoint are not necessarily family by blood. That's why it's a private organization as opposed to private family. Now, what does that sound? Does that sound like the NBA? Does that sound like the government agency? There you go.
So the sister has, she writes plays.
Was that the couple that?
Yes, they write plays.
Yeah, I can tell they were very engaged on my.
So then you would put that in a trust, the play itself in a trust, the written, would that be separate from?
I'll say, I hear it. Now, I want y'all to hear this because we got a lot of creators, writers, authors, etc. That's considered intellectual property. Now, that's considered intellectual property. Intellectual property, patents, trademarks, copyrights, playwrights, All of that is intangible assets, also known specifically intellectual property. Yes, there is a category for intellectual property to go into your private family trust or a private organization trust in that case. Okay, see, one thing I'll share with them is how to put that wall of separation between church matters, church assets versus family matters and family assets. But we gotta keep a wall between the two. Okay, so if they want to do both, private family trust for private family assets, that'll go to the children and grandchildren. Private organization trust for stuff that'll stand in the name of the church, and when they pass that church on to the next generation of church leaders, they're in control. You don't want your church leaders controlling the house that your children inherit, and vice versa. So that's how we separate.
Wow.
Great stuff. Great. Glad you brought that up. Yeah. Any other before I sit down? Come on.
So I started my
Those. There you go.
So I started my businesses.
Great.
First one, I set up as an LLC. The second one is the second one. But I'm the sole. I'm the sole everything.
Yes. Gotcha.
So there is no board.
It's you. It's just you. Yep.
And I put that under a trust.
You can. You don't have to, just for that sake. There are other reasons I'll share with you what you call for consultation. But yes, you can. And now here's the benefit. What she's saying is she has two LLCs. And she's the creator and owner of those LLCs. Now, what I would propose that she does and give her the choice, but what I'll educate her on is the value of transferring ownership of the LLCs to the trust. And here's how simple it is. And you don't necessarily need me to do this. You go into your articles of organization in your LLC document.
Yes.
Take your name off as owner, amend it to be the trust as the owner, once you have a trust in place. Now, the trust is the owner. The trust is the responsible party. Why is that important? Let's just say, does either one of your LLCs have a product associated or just service?
Yes, sir.
A service. Okay. Let's say someone's unhappy with you, they pay you for a service. They decide they're unhappy with the service they got. So they want to do what? Take it to court, right? Let's just say that not only do you lose the court case, but let's just say hypothetically, they found you negligent, what they call criminally negligent in some form. Just hypothetically, I know it's gonna happen. We're not claiming this ever, but hypothetically speaking, now, since you're the owner of the LLC means what? Limited liability corporation. Liability is supposed to be limited. However, there's smart attorneys out there. They go the deep pocket approach. So they want to come after not just LLC assets, but they can get to your assets. You're the owner. So if they can prove something criminal, I'll tell you why in a moment, they can now get to your personal account, your personal home that has nothing to do with the LLC. So you're at risk. How do you eliminate that risk? How you put a wall of protection with your personal assets, even if you lose that action, have your personal assets in a trust, have the LLC owned, could be owned by the same trust. But now, yeah, have the LLC in a trust. But because the LLC is not owned by you, if any action gets beyond the protection of the LLC, it still can't touch your personal asset. Make sense?
Yeah.
Make sense, everybody?
Yeah.
All right, so those of you say you have LLC, already know, unless you live into a trust, you're the owner. Now, if you say, well, Ken, my service is of such a nature, I'm just not concerned about a lawsuit. I'll say, fine, then we're not gonna put you under trust ownership and trust protection if you think that's just such a minimal concern of yours. However, if you look at your other assets that are not under that LLC, And because they're personal, and you want them to go to your children, you don't want them controlled by other members of the LLC. That's where the trust becomes your best friend. Okay, absolutely. Now, also, let's just say you were to say, after we talk in private, you say, well, Brother Ken, I don't really have anything else to be concerned about protecting. I just want to give everything else away in the will. How do we give you better protection than you currently have? I'm going to encourage you. Imagine you were created a trust and you're looking for those people acting wisely. A, would be available, accountable, C, capable, T, trustworthy. I want you to find one or two, at least two. So if anything, God forbid, happens to you, sickness, illness, accident, death, coma, long-term illnesses, that you can't perform what you're doing. Now, they can't do exactly what you do because they don't know what they know. They don't know what you know. They don't have your experience running that business. However, would you agree that one or two people be up to date on what you do, how somewhat on how you do it? And here's the important thing. You have instructed them, put it in writing. Hey, if something happens to me, here's what I want you to do. Do that with at least two people. Why two? Because if something happens to one of them, still got to back up. But please, I'm just gonna say it, fix that, change that, improve that situation. Okay, and that's if you don't get a trust. If you get a trust, we'll package it all within that trust function. Awesome, awesome.
All right, come on, give a round of applause. Thanks for good information. Hey, you know what? I did put him in a pickle. I said, he was saying, you know, because we met him on Zoom.
Right.
But when he was talking about thinking it was gonna be on Zoom, I said, there's one more thing. I want you physically to be here. Because I want them to be able to get with you even afterwards. So I really want you to take advantage of him being here and speak to him. When you leave? Good morning?
Later on this evening.
Tonight, okay. And make sure you get his number. Do you see the importance of what he's talking about? Yeah. It's super important to put things in order for our children and all the things that we work for. I've got to put efforts in. I've got to deal with whatever structure Elizabeth is going to be. And if I don't have to go 501, no, okay, here's a good question, real quick, because I know we're over our time. If you choose not to go 501c3, but you want to be protected in such and you go through a trust, can she get a write-off for giving to my organization as a trust versus a 501c3?
So if you're a trust, not 501c3, and you've got contributions coming in, can they be tax deductible to the contributor?
Under trust.
In that scenario, no, but there's some other things you can put in place. For instance, connect a foundation to the trust.
Yeah.
Now, so technically we'll have that contribution go to the foundation, and under the foundation rule, they're just, so there are ways you can follow those contributions to still get.
Yeah, that's why, what's his name, Trump?
Yeah.
Didn't want to show everything,
Exactly,
because he's doing it legal, because he's working through the trust stuff.
absolutely.
He don't want all the work and foundation, he don't want us to know nothing about it.
Right.
I mean, you probably don't care if you know about it, but I'm just saying,
Right.
in general, okay, my people perish
For that.
for lack of knowledge.
Right.
And here's knowledge right here for all of us, all day, all yesterday, lots of knowledge. We should, our life should be changed. Our life can be changed. We just take what Nicole was talking about this morning, just amazing. What the young ladies did this afternoon about just amazing, amazing. And we're about to go into some real more amazing stuff. And you want to say something?
Underline it. You take what Dr. Nicole shared, the president line shared, the later shared, Again, holistically, here's my closing comment. We're talking, looking at our life, our entire life holistically. Dr. Cole teaches how to just deal with this body and the health of the body holistically. Then you add in the mind, mindset, add in the spirit, hope and pray you're led by the spirit, the right spirit, otherwise you will be led by other spirits you really didn't intend to be led by. Amen. Amen. And then the assets you're blessed with, as you allow God or your creator to lead you through the spirit, you are going to be blessed. My closing thought to you is, where are you going to park those blessings so you don't easily let no one take them away? Thank you all for having me.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay. Woo, that was delicious. That was wonderful. Just one of the things that we say about Elizabeth, the Grand Rising Elizabeth, we talk about that it's, you picture it in that you're living in a mansion. This is all of us in our little squares, right? And then it's time for breakfast. And every day through the week, a different kitchen crew is in charge. So you're gonna eat whatever, on Monday, you're gonna eat whatever Danielle and her team puts together. On Tuesdays, the health and wellness stuff. And then on Wednesdays, we have Wisdom Wednesday with Mama Het and not Mama Het and Jackie and now Mama Evelyn. And then on Thursdays, we've got Reverend Omani and Takrisha on, well, you sound like you had a new name today when you were talking about what the name of it was. But Therapeutic Thursdays, some deep training. And then on Friday, we have Danny, myself, and Lolly. And we just rock it. There on Fridays is passion and purpose. And we have dynamite people that come in and speak. So I was saying that to say, I don't know. We rock. We rock. We rock. So I want you to, one beside being invited. That's what happens. And our lives, all of our lives are evolving. All the teaching that comes through the Grand Rising of Elizabeth platform. So take a moment, about 6 o'clock, I gotta run and pick my husband up. And we're gonna get into some more serious now acceptance of your baby. The healing, the birthing, the where are you now with your babies? The S. Yeah. Yes. They can't hear what you're saying. Oh, okay. I'm just agreeing. So take a moment and I'll be right back. And we're gonna have a good time.
I'll have to pass on. If you can't read that, let me know. I'll write it down. I'm saying I'm not hard. That's something you can't do. Or you can go for your life.
Okay, thank you.